All right, everybody, welcome in to another episode of the NFL Seekers podcast. Today, we're going to be previewing and predicting week 15 of the NFL season. It's the year of the backup quarterback, baby. It's a crazy year, just backup quarterbacks taking over the NFL, or fantasy football playoffs are starting this week. A lot of decisions to make. The current starting quarterbacks across the league right now consist of players like Easton Stick, Aiden O'Connell, Nick Mullins, Jake Browning, Mitch Trubisky, Gardner Minshew, Tommy DeVito, 2023 Joe Flacco, Desmond Ritter, Zach Wilson, Bailey Zappi, Davis Mills, maybe Drew Lock. Crazy, crazy stuff going on in the NFL. Some crazy upsets going on last week. What is happening right now in the NFL stores? It's crazy.
It's a disaster class. These quarterbacks are, it's crazy. I mean, it's the year of quarterbacks getting hurt. It's wild. It's like we've never seen anything this crazy. And it's so crazy to think a lot of these backup quarterbacks are going to be playing in the playoffs. You could possibly have your Jake Brownings, your Mitch Trubisky's, all fighting for playoff spots. Your Gardner Minshew's. It's wild, and so that's kind of the story of 2023, and it's just an absolute disaster.
Yeah, one of these guys is going to end up being like the Nick Foles, the guy that we look back on in a few years, and I think it could be a Jake Browning type. I don't know. It'll be interesting. I think one of them will kind of will break the mold. But yeah, really fun. I guess we'll get into all the games because there's no bye weeks this week, so we got a lot of games to get into. We'll start off with the Thursday night football game. The 5-8 Chargers are going to go into Vegas and play the 5-8 Raiders. The Raiders are 3-point home favorites, and that's a big part of that is due to no Herbert or Keenan Allen in this game. The two star players for the Chargers, the great connection. It's really unfortunate, really, really unfortunate. This season couldn't have gone any worse for the Chargers, really. It's looking like this is going to be Easton Stick versus Jimmy G. It might be Aiden O'Connell, could be Brian Hoyer. Antonio Pierce hasn't really said who it's going to be, but I'm kind of getting the vibes that it's Jimmy G because they're coming off a 0-point performance. So I think they're going to have to put their most competent guy out there. And so I think Jimmy G is going to go out there, and I think the Raiders are going to be pretty motivated at home. How do you think this goes?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of crazy to think what contract they gave Jimmy G this offseason. And it almost just feels like you're kind of forced to at this point with an Aiden O'Connell goose egg. And it's like you gave Jimmy Garoppolo the bag and you gotta at least kind of see what you have at the end of the season. What was his contract? It was something, I mean, it was brutal. It was brutal. It was a Josh McDaniels masterclass. Um, but I mean, the story of both of these teams, is just ridiculous. They're both 5-8, just coaching. I mean, it's just a story of sadness for the fans, and that's kind of the moral of this story. And this is a primetime game. I know Chris Collinsworth was mad that he has to actually call this game because he's like, I don't want to call it Easton Stick Aiden O'Connell game. This is ridiculous. This is a primetime game. This is a joke. And this is just, I mean, if we could just put in a clown emoji over this game, that's what it is. I mean, if it's really Easton Stick and Aiden O'Connell, it's just gonna be which defense plays better. Is Khalil Mack or Max Crosby gonna cause more of a havoc? Which defense is going to allow 0 points is kind of what we're getting at in this one. Um, and in a weird way, me being a Chargers fan, I want the Chargers to lose because it's obviously a better draft pick. But for some reason, I gotta pick them to win. It just kind of feels like the Chargers defense will play better. I think if Jimmy G does end up being the starter, I think that might change my look on it a little bit. But if Aiden O'Connell is the starter, I think I'm going to pick the Chargers to give him a little too much of a hassle. As last time they played, Khalil Mack had 6 sacks on him.
Yeah, that I think this game will definitely come down to the defense, whatever player wreaks more havoc. I do think it's going to be Max Crosby at home, so I'm going to pick the Raiders because I think Max Crosby just wins this game by himself. The Chargers offensive line kind of struggled against the Broncos last week, so Max Crosby's coming off a completely dominant performance. So I think he's going to continue that, and I think it's going to translate to a win in this one just because of Easton Stick and Keenan being. I think if Keenan was playing, the Chargers would be able to kind of move the ball easier because like he had 12 targets last week. He did pretty well against the Broncos, even with Stick, but without Keenan, with Eckler kind of being the driving force of this offense, I can't pick the Chargers in this one in Vegas. I have to go with the Raiders.
Yeah, it's just gonna be a tight, low scoring battle of the defenses and pretty gross game. It's probably one of the more gross Thursday night football games you'll see. So don't be surprised if it's another 3-0 type of beat.
Yeah, going to be very low scoring for sure. So I guess we'll get into the fantasy aspect of things. Like I could definitely start both of these defenses. Whoever you think is going to win. I am starting the Raiders defense in our main league because I think the Raiders are going to win and probably do pretty good at home. So and get a lot of sacks. So I am pretty confident in both these defenses. For the Raiders, you start Josh Jacobs if he plays. Hopefully he's playing. If not, you could throw a dart at Zamir White. It's hard because he's barely gotten any carries all season. So that's really hard. Josh Jacobs managers really have to monitor that. Maybe just pick up Zamir White if you do have Jacobs. And I think Devontae Adams and Jacobs are the only starts on the Raiders. And then for the Chargers, I think Eckler is the only start because he's going to get the crazy amount of volume. He's going to be the entire offense. And I think there's 3 offensive starts in this game. Gerald Everett could be a shit. Gerald
Yeah,
Everett.
I mean, you could throw some darts on Chargers players. I mean, Quentin Johnston had his best game of his season. Seemed like he had a little bit of chemistry with Easton Stick via the preseason and practice. So it seems like there's a little chemistry there. That's a total dart throw. I don't if you're in the fantasy playoffs, I don't know if you take that risk, but that's one other dart throw, and Josh Palmer is looks to be back, but I would probably give him another game or so before you could consider starting him. But Quentin Johnston, a very, 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 very scary dart throw, though.
Yeah, you're not wrong. Easton Stick and Quentin Johnston did have a little bit of a rapport at the end of that Broncos game, so you could throw a dart at that in a very deep league. And with that, we'll get on to the next one, the first of the Saturday games. We got 3 Saturday games this week. The 7-6 Vikings are going to go into Cincinnati and play the 7-6 Bengals. The Bengals are 3-point favorites. This one's going to be played at 1 p.m. Eastern on Saturday. And yeah, we got Nick Mullins versus Jake Browning. Speaking of the year of the backups, it's going to be a polarizing one. Both these teams are really in the wild card races for their respective divisions. Both teams are playing really hard. Like respect to Brian Flores, who has that Vikings defense playing as like a top 5 unit. They're really, really outperforming their roster talent. And the Bengals, you're seeing how good the Bengals roster talent outside of the quarterback position is. They were my Super Bowl pick at the beginning of the season, not just because of this roster. It's so talented around that quarterback position. I think if there is one team to really rally around that quarterback and make a run in the playoffs, it is the Bengals. They're starting to figure things out. They're playing good football, and Zach Taylor's such a good coach. So I'm just gonna get my pick out of the way right now. It's a hard one to pick because both teams are close with backup quarterbacks and playing for a playoff spot. But I am gonna pick the Bengals at home. I'm really liking what Jake Browning's doing, spreading it around to those pieces, and I just think they have a lot more star talent.
Move on from Easton Stick and Aiden O'Connell to Jake Browning and Nick Mullins. Really love that. I'd love to see it. It's just quarterback masterclass out here. But yeah, I'll 100% agree with you on this one. I think this Bengals team is actually for real, even minus Joe Burrow. I mean, they really, really have had some good games these past couple weeks under Jake Browning. He's kind of showed that he can kind of take control of this offense, and they can put up big points. I mean, they've scored. I mean, Joe Mixon and Jamar Chase still look to be relevant. This defense is can hang in there with the best of them. So yeah, I have faith in Jake Browning, and he showed enough. And then on the Vikings side, we have yet to see Nick Mullins this year. Obviously, last week Josh Dobbs struggled mightily, but yeah, I mean, I just don't know if I have faith in Nick Mullins, and in his first start this season, I kind of would have liked to see Jaron Hall, to be honest. We saw one drive of Jaron Hall and it looked pretty decent, and we haven't got to see him again. So ultimately, it's Nick Mullins, and yeah, he just doesn't give me enough confidence. I don't know if he is getting the first team reps this week, which should be big, but at the same time, I just don't know if that chemistry is going to be there.
Yeah, I don't know. I think Nick Mullins is a good passer. I think he won't be too bad. I think he might be more like ready right now than Jaren Hall, but he also hasn't played for a while, like you said, other than the end of that Raiders game. So yeah, I think he'll transitioning into fantasy. I think he'll be able to make Justin Jefferson and TJ Hawkinson like relevant fantasy options. I think you do start them. I think you really start Ty Chandler in deeper leagues, especially if you need a running back. I think Ty Chandler is a start. I think he's just going to get a lot of work, and he's just so much more electric than Alexander Madison. So you don't have to worry about Madison. So if Madison doesn't play, start Chandler, start Hawkinson, start Jefferson. I don't think I want to start Addison with Nick Mullins. I'm not starting Addison. I said that last week, and it paid off. And then for the Bengals, Joe Mixon's like a top running back because the Bengals are kind of a high scoring offense still, and he's like a touchdown machine. So Joe Mixon, you're the most excited about. They're kind of spreading it around, so the ceiling on everyone else isn't too high, but Jamar Chase is a good start, and then T. Higgins is kind of a dart throw. Not really. I'm not really wanting to start him, and Chase Brown's a stash for Dynasty.
100%. How are you feeling about these defenses though, Dan? Are you feeling confident in either one of them?
I don't think so. I could kind of see this being like 30 to 27, just like not really too much defense. I don't know actually. That's hard
I don't know,
because
with the Vikings, what they did against the Raiders last week was
yeah,
brutal.
you're right. Like the Vikings do have a really good defense, a top defense, like I said, but I'm picking the Bengals, so could I really start the Vikings defense in Cincinnati? I don't think so, honestly.
Yeah, I'm kind of on the same page with you there. I think if you have Joe Mixon this fantasy playoff run, I think it's really going to pay off. He's looked super solid. He's fine in the end zone. So get excited about these Bengals options, especially I mean Jamar Chase and Joe Mixon especially, because it looks like they'll be plenty relevant for the playoffs.
Yeah, definitely. And with that, we'll get on to the next Saturday game. The 7-6 Steelers are going to go into Indy and play the 7-6 Colts. A lot of 7-6 teams, especially in this AFC wild card race. It's so tight. The Colts are 1.5 point favorites. This one will be played at 4:30 p.m. Eastern on Saturday, and it's going to be Mitch Trubisky versus Gardner Minshew. Speaking of these backup quarterbacks, man, it's just
Three
crazy.
for
And
three. 3 for 3.
first three games, the first two Saturday games, just all backup quarterback play. It's going to be beautiful, and I'm just going to get my pick out of the way on this one as well. I don't trust Trubisky. I just can't trust Trubisky. I think if Mason Rudolph was in this game, then I would give him more fair analysis, and it would be pretty close. But I'm just going to pick the Colts because I think they're going to bounce back coming off a loss. I think they're pretty solid at home. I think Zach Moss will kind of bounce back from a few rough performances, and I think Michael Pittman will be able to get his in the end. And it's going to be a close game, but I just think the Colts will come away with it.
Yeah, like you said, it's just any team that Mitch Trubisky is on. I don't know how you can pick them to win because he is just honestly he's terrible. He's a terrible quarterback. The Steelers are coming off of two brutal losses, one to the Cardinals, 24-10, one to the Patriots, 21-18. They are not looking like a very hot team. Mitch Trubisky is hot trash, and that's not a hot take. That's a cold take. And yeah, it's just it'd be hard to go into any game and think you can win with Mitch Trubisky, in my opinion. I feel like you want to almost put in anyone else. And yeah, so obviously with that, I'm rolling with the Colts. I think last week was a little disappointing for them. But I mean, I'm sure they're looking to bounce back. In my opinion, I keep saying this, head coach of the year, Shane Steichen, should get this offense rolling against the Steelers. I mean, and then, transitioning to a fantasy aspect real quick. I mean, I'm feeling confident in Zach Moss this week. I am. I think he's been a little underwhelming the last couple of weeks, but I'm feeling a touchdown from Zach Moss. I'm feeling a little bit of the receiving game. Michael Pittman is a must start. Like we've been saying, Josh Downs and the other receivers are a little scary at this point. I mean they're a dart throw, but they're just not consistent enough under Gardner right now. So I don't know if I'd start them. And then the Steelers, ooh, I guess Deontay Johnson.
Deontay Johnson is definitely the best option because we know Trubisky loves him. We saw it on Thursday. He threw the touchdown to him. I think Trubisky only looks at Deontay Johnson. So yeah, I agree. It's Deontay Johnson. Najee's the other dart throw, and you don't start George Pickens, and Jalen Warren's like a deep dart throw because he's electric. That's it.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of it. I hope this next game we move into is doesn't have a backup quarterback in
It doesn't. But
it.
I do agree. I do think Zach Moss actually does have a good bounce back game. He's had two kind of stinkers, but I think with the volume, I think he'll actually be able to get some good production at home in this one. So yeah, you start kind of like we've been saying the last few weeks. Pittman and Moss. I'm kind of scared off on the other Colts, but with that, we'll get on to the last Saturday game, the Saturday night game. The Broncos are going to go into Detroit and play the Lions. The Lions are 4-point home favorites for the Saturday night football game. And this is such a fun, interesting matchup to me. It's two teams who are on kind of two complete different trajectories right now. The Broncos are really trending upwards. They're one of the hotter teams in the NFL. The Lions are kind of on the downward trajectory the last few weeks. They're kind of struggling on defense, just off of not the best form right now. But this will be a very, very physical game. Two of the more physical football teams, two top five offensive lines are in this game. So it's going to be a very physical football game that I love watching, and I'm really excited to see how this plays out because it's a really good matchup. I don't really know how it's going to go.
Yeah, this is an extremely good matchup. This should be one of the more fun games to tune into and watch. I mean, yeah, I mean the Lions are definitely, struggling at this point of the season compared to the Broncos, who seem to really pick it up. I mean, the Broncos were on that 5 game winning streak, lost one, and now they're back to a win after last week versus the Chargers. So, things are looking good in Denver right now. They're fighting for that back end playoff spot. They're on the outside looking in right now, so they're going to be very motivated. And then the Lions, they're trying to figure it out. That was a very very brutal loss to the Bears. Quite embarrassing, honestly. They got humiliated by the Bears, and I think that was one of their first games, if not it was their second game scoring under 20 points this entire season. So that was their second game scoring under 20. Um, I do expect them to bounce back. I do have faith in Dan Campbell and Ben Johnson. Um, I think it's going to be a coaching masterclass in this one. I really like Dan Campbell and Ben Johnson versus Sean Payton. Their mind in this one. It's a I mean, two very different but very kind of similar coaches. Um, and I don't know. I think this is just going to be a brilliant game, and I think it's going to be a high scoring game. I think the Lions are going to let the Broncos run up the score, and they're just going to be right with them. And I think it's going to kind of be a goose race. I could say till the end. And however, I think the Lions after that humiliating loss to the Bears last week are going to be looking to bounce back in a positive trajectory. So I do have the Lions winning this game. In my opinion, I'm just going to throw out a score prediction. I think it's going to be like 33-28. It's going to be a high scoring, fun game. But I am rolling with the Lions, and I expect Ben Johnson to have a really good game plan going into this one.
Yep. Yeah, I like everything you said. I do think the coaching is going to be huge in this one. Obviously, they're familiar with each other. Dan Campbell kind of came up behind Sean Payton, and Sean Payton, I want to talk about him because I think he's truly the coach of the year so far, and he's not even like top three in the Vegas betting odds right now. And I don't even know if there's another coach that's close to Sean Payton right now when you consider the 2022 Broncos, the narrative around 2022 Russ. I think Sean Payton's done the most tremendous job and turnaround of the whole NFL season. So just great coaching in this one. And like you said, the Lions secondary is kind of a problem. That's where the Broncos will kind of be able to score more than they're used to. The Broncos are more of just a game managing team, a defensive team, a run first team, and play action team. But I do think they're going to be able to score like some passing touchdowns, get some passing yards in this one. And like you said, I think the difference is the offensive lines, the run game. I think the Lions run game, if they can kind of just assert their dominance in the run game, take over in the run game, and just kind of run the clock out that way, I think that's how they win this game. That's the Broncos' kind of weakest spot on their defense. So
Turnover battle is going to be super important.
yeah,
Super. Yeah,
yeah,
I mean, I'm going to just throw this out here real quick. Sorry to cut you off, but whoever wins the turnover battle will probably win, I think, in my opinion.
yeah. The turnovers have been crucial in the Broncos' kind of win streak as well. So that is big. If Goff doesn't make any mistakes, if they just kind of run it down the Broncos' throats, pound it in a good way. I think that Montgomery and Gibbs are big X factors in this one. However, I am going to pick the Broncos. I do think that that Lions defense is just going to allow Russ and Sutton to kind of have a more magical performance than they've been having, and they've been doing pretty good. So I think this is one of the worst defenses the Broncos have faced recently, and I'm excited to see how it goes. I'm gonna say like 28-24, a really close one, back and forth in Detroit. I think the Broncos will pull it out though. They're just the hotter team, so I'm gonna roll with the Flames.
Yeah, this should be a good one. And from a fantasy aspect, I think this is going to be an offensive masterclass. So, I mean, obviously, you know who you're starting on your lines. You got the big three. It's David Montgomery, Jameer Gibbs, and Amon-Ra St. Brown. And of course, sorry, big four, Sam Laporta. Um, excuse me, Sam Laporta. That was kind of disrespectful of me. And then on the Broncos, I think it's Cortland Sutton and Javante, and you're feeling confident in those guys. And you know that this should be a big scoring game, so should help your fantasy playoffs off a lot if you have some of these guys on your team.
And don't forget Russ. I think Russ is a really good start against the Lions defense and secondary. I think Russ is a great matchup if you had Herbert or something like we did in our co-manager league. I think Russ is kind of the start this week in this specific matchup. Really good spot starter. So love
100%.
that. All right, with that, we'll get on to the first Sunday game. The Jets are going to go into Miami and play the Dolphins. The Dolphins are 8.5 point favorites, and this is going to be interesting. The Jets are starting to click. They're coming off a better performance, but they're coming into a really good Dolphins team who's coming off a bad loss against the Titans, who you know kind of had a really fun performance against the Dolphins on Monday. But yeah, I don't know. I think the Dolphins defense has really been playing pretty solid recently, maybe outside of a few plays against the Titans and not being able to guard DeAndre Hopkins. But I do think the Dolphins defense has been solid. Obviously, having Tyreek Hill out there will be huge. We don't know 100% if he'll be out there. I think he will be. And as we saw in that Titans game, if he isn't, it's a problem for this Dolphins offense. He is probably the most valuable player if we're talking about the most valuable football player in the NFL. We saw it. He is just a game changer. So if Tyreek's out there with the Dolphins defense playing the way it is, I think that the Jets kind of flash in the pan, make get right game last week was just kind of a one-off thing against the Texans team where all the things that could have gone wrong went wrong last week. So I do think things kind of regress back to normal, back to the mean here, and the Dolphins kind of win handily in that 8.5 point line. Vegas kind of agrees with me as well.
Yeah, I'm be real short and blunt. Yeah, the Jets are going to get a nice slice of humble pie after last week. And I mean, you saw the first time, which was just a couple weeks ago, with Tua not even playing very well. I mean, they still beat them 34-13. I think it's even going to be a bigger blowout this time. I think the Dolphins will handle them with ease. I think Tua is going to be a lot more surgical. I know the last time they played, Tua did have two interceptions, and I think one of them was a pick six, if I'm remembering correctly, which got the Jets on the board. But yeah, it's gonna be ultimately, the Jets defense that's got to come up big. I feel like their offense will definitely regress to the mean. I feel like Fangio is gonna have a great plan against the Jets offense. I feel like the Jets offense just everything kind of just went right for them. I feel like the way D'Amico Ryan's game plan last week was pretty terrible. Just not putting a lot of pressure or anything. It was kind of weird. It was just kind of weird. It was just like you said. It was just everything that went wrong for that team, and it was just a bad day. And they kind of were asleep at the wheel. But the Dolphins just came off a really tough loss, and I think they're going to be pissed off, and they want this number one seed going into the playoffs. And so I think they're gonna give this Jets team a butt whooping, and you know um and then if we're ready to transition into the fantasy type of thing, obviously you know who you're starting with the Dolphins. Starting, both running backs. It's Mozart, it's Achan, and obviously monitor Tyreek Hill, but he's obviously if he's playing, you're starting him. Jalen Waddle was actually okay last week. So obviously start him. And on the Jets side of the ball, I you hope Garrett Wilson kind of can repeat what he did last week. And Brees Hall, I don't know how confident I feel in these two this week, but I mean, given probably most people's situation, you're not going to have any better options.
Yeah, no, the same for the Jets. It's the same two options the whole season. It's Brees Hall and Garrett Wilson. You do start them. I don't think they'll do bad against the Dolphins. They're gonna have to score some points. They're gonna have to get some yards. Garrett Wilson, Brees Hall will be the entire offense, the entire volume. So
It's going to
you
be a lot of the short game. You're going to see a lot of screens, slants, curls. It's just you know what you're going to see.
yeah, definitely. So they'll get there off of just catches in a PPR league, and then yeah, for the Dolphins, you're starting everyone like you said. You start both running backs, and you don't really think twice about it. And the Jets defense is super solid. It will give Tua some problems. It won't be like a blowout or anything, but the Dolphins will get the job done.
100%. Yep.
Yeah,
This one we both agree on, so you don't need to watch it.
don't watch it. With that, we'll get on to the next one. The 8-5 Chiefs are going to go into New England and play the 3-10 Patriots. Feels crazy to say that. The Chiefs are 7.5 point road favorites. The Chiefs are coming off a temper tantrum loss. Mahomes threw a fit, very public fit, and everyone saw it, and it was pretty embarrassing. But I think it's pretty safe to say this is a pretty good get right game, and they're going to bounce back in this one. And in New England, the Patriots are coming off a win. Bailey Zappi honestly did play good against the Steelers. He was making some good throws on time, getting it uh, to Juju and Zeke pretty much. He didn't have anyone. The Patriots should get Demario Douglas back in this one, so that is a boost. They had literally no receivers. They were without three receivers last week, so Demario Douglas, maybe Devontae Parker getting back should be a boost for the Patriots. Might make it closer, but the Chiefs defense is better as well, so we have to take the Chiefs. I'm just gonna get it out of the way.
Yeah, this is the game we don't need to really go too much into other than, it's the temper tantrum versus the evil Bill Belichick. um yeah, again, I have to comment on it because it's just so pathetic. Yeah, that public meltdown by Patrick Mahomes, just not classy. It was just quite frankly disgusting. Um, but I mean, you look at it from a different sense. At least he's passionate. At least he wants to win. So he has that fire in him. But there's just a better way to go about it. And with that said, they're probably going to beat the Patriots 40-0. So the run first Chiefs. Start everyone, I guess. Well, you know who you're starting. You're starting your Travis Kelsey, your Mahomes. Is Pacheco should be back in this one.
Yeah, we don't have clarity on Pacheco as well. So obviously, if Pacheco plays, you start him. He's going to be a star. And if you don't, or if he doesn't, then you can throw a dart at McKinnon and CEH. It's kind of scary because they're splitting, but one will probably score. Let's be real. So I do think they're decent dart throws. Obviously, Rashi Rice is a complete star, and for the Patriots, you're just starting Zeke and Mario Douglas, right?
Yeah, yeah. No, no one else you consider.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, there's not much to go over in this game. The Chiefs are going to dominate, but like it might not even be that high scoring because the Chiefs aren't that same dynamic team. The Patriots defense has been playing better. So it still could be like, not too
If,
much of a blowout.
if they weren't the run first Chiefs, it'd be my bloody murder game of the week. But they are the run first Chiefs.
Exactly. And we don't know about Pacheco yet. So yeah, I guess that's their best player, their star player. That's going to be a big impact, but monitor that. And with that, we'll get on to the next one. The 5-8 Bears are going to go into Cleveland and play the 8-5 Browns. The Browns are 8-5 with four different quarterbacks this season. Pretty impressive. Browns are 3-point favorites at home. And this is honestly like a defensive juggernaut matchup. And I'm not even kidding. It sounds crazy to say from what the Bears were earlier in the season, but these are two top defenses, almost like top five defenses, and it's going to be a low scoring, close game. And shout out to Eberflus. He has the Bears defense balling ever since they got Montez Sweat. Him and Jalen Johnson have been stars. Jaquan Brisker has been a star. He had 17 tackles last week. It's crazy what the Bears defense has been doing. They're really solid. They're all understanding their assignments, and they're just a really disciplined, good team. So the Bears have kind of been rejuvenated. Justin Fields is playing really good football. And speaking of a quarterback playing really good football, Joseph Flacco has been zipping the ball. His arm still has some zip in it, man. It's fun to watch. He's throwing some really good balls. He's making this Browns team pretty fun. Amari Cooper and David Njoku have been like stars with Joe Flacco. So Joe Flacco is definitely making some teams regret not signing him. Definitely making the Jets regret not bringing him back into the building after he was already there. And he's really good. He's getting it to these playmakers, and with the Browns' top one defense in the NFL, it's fun to watch.
Yeah, I would almost was wanting to pick the Bears honestly in this one to win. And then I saw 2013 Super Bowl champion Joe Flacco roll out there with the Browns and looked better than Deshaun Watson ever has. And so I'm quite frankly simple, easiest pick of my life. I'm rolling with Super Bowl champion Joe Flacco with this absolutely lethal number one defense Browns. I think they'll give Justin Fields an absolute fit. And the the Bears had a really good game last week. I mean, they put it to the Lions, but again, 2013 Joe Flacco is back, and this might be, in my opinion, this is going to be a hot take. This is going to be one of my hot takes. This is my Michael Myers bloody murder game of the week. The Browns defense is going to force two plus fumbles and interception on Justin Fields. This Bears team's going to absolutely fall apart, and Joe Flacco's going to throw for another four touchdowns and 300 yards.
Wow. I don't know if I see this one being a blowout. That is an interesting take, but I do
That's the
agree.
hot take of the week.
I do agree with the 2013 Joe Flacco. I don't see a difference between Ravens Joe Flacco. I'm not even saying that as a joke too. His arm still's the same zip. He's always been a pocket quarterback. It's not like he's ever moved in the pocket. He's the same quarterback. He looks the same. And the best thing about Joe Flacco is he doesn't care who he's throwing it to. He just finds the open receiver and just gets it to him. And he doesn't care what the guy's name is. He doesn't care where he is. He just gets it off to the open receiver. And that's kind of why we wanted the Jets to get him, because he knows what to do. He knows how to win. He knows how to get it to those open receivers. And so I feel like the Jets probably would be like a 10-win team if they had Flacco all year. So that's a fumble. But yeah, I agree. I'm going to pick the Browns. I think it's going to be a squeaker because I respect the Bears defense so much. They've kind of rejuvenated. So I do think it's going to be a close one, but I do think 2013 Flacco is going to come away with it.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun one. Tune in for Joe Flacco, top quarterback in the league right now. Probably should have been the quarterback of the week last week. Got robbed of that. But should be a fun one. And fantasy options. What are you thinking in this one, Dan? I'm starting Joe Flacco personally.
Yeah, Flacco definitely did get robbed of quarterback of the week for no reason at all, just because other people have more hype around him, and he's apparently just because he's old. But yeah, I think Flacco's a good spot start. He's gonna throw touchdowns. He's throwing dots, and he has the playmakers. Like, speaking of his playmakers, I'm starting Flacco if I need. If I had Herbert get hurt, and I'm starting Amari Cooper. I'm starting David Njoku. They're like wide receiver one, tight end one, stars. You almost like league winners in fantasy right now, so it's huge that you have them. And Jerome Ford is a really good start. Joe Flacco's making all these options like good starts, and Elijah Moore is even a dart throw with Joe Flacco. And for the Bears, it's kind of just Justin Fields, DJ Moore, Cole Kmet. You're staying away from the running backs.
Yeah, the running backs are disaster. Justin Fields is your running back, and that's what you want as a Bears fan because when Justin Fields is the RB1, they seem to do better. So you hit the nail on the head with those with the fantasy plays of the week, and should be a fun one. So tune in.
And yeah, Fields was fun last week. Like, he was pushing the right buttons, when to run at the right time, when to pass at the right time. He was really just beating the Lions on his legs and with his arms. So it was really fun to watch. We'll get on to the next game. The 6-7 Buccaneers are going to go into Green Bay and play the 6-7 Packers. The Packers are 3.5-point home favorites, and this is definitely one of the harder games to pick of the week for me. These two teams are really even on paper. These two teams have been really competitive, playing some pretty good football as of late. I like what Baker's been doing, and I absolutely love what Jordan Love has been doing. He didn't have the sharpest game in New York on Monday. I thought he was a little bit off, but the three games before that, he was damn near perfect. So I do kind of expect Jordan Love to bounce back at home in this one, but like we said in our previous podcast, the Buccaneers are literally competitive in every single game. They don't get blown out. They're just in every game. They're so relentless. Baker Mayfield keeps coming. They have so many stars on offense. Like, Rashad White is a real star, and they have Evans, Godwin, this guy Antoine Winfield, Vita Vea. They have a lot of stars. So I think this is a really tough game to pick. It's going to be a close one.
Yeah, thought I had this made up in my mind, and just you naming that roster just really gave me an itch to wanna go against what I picked, and screw it. Let's roll with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. You know, Why not? Why not? I think they want it more. Just kidding. I mean, I think both of these teams want it. I think this is going to be an absolute bloodbath between the two. I think they're going to play each other so hard. Um, the Packers kind of fell asleep at the wheel. They kind of regressed last week. But I do think they'll bounce back. But like you just said, I mean, this team, this Buccaneers team, really does have a lot of star talent on it, and why not? You just you naming their roster just got me pumped up, and I'm changing my pick, which was originally locked in as the Packers. I'm changing to the Bucks. They're just playing good football. I have not seen them get blown out this year, and Baker with Chris Godwin and Mike Evans, Cade Otton, Rashad White. It's just solid. It's just solid. So give me the Bucks. Why not?
Yeah, I like that a lot. I'm gonna go against you. I think Jordan Love has a good bounce back game at home. It's so close. It's a coin flip. Like I think if Christian Watson is definitely playing this game, I'm more confident in it. We have no clarification if Christian Watson's playing, so it's a big X factor. But that just shows you how close this is. It's a coin flip. It's gonna be really close. Both teams are literally like the same on paper. I am just very confident in Jordan Love. I'm a big Jordan Love guy, so I am gonna pick him to bounce back at home. I guess we'll transition into fantasy. Speaking of Christian Watson, it's a big unknown. I think Christian Watson's a scary start with the injury. If he is playing, I kind of am gonna just talk as if he's not playing. I think Jaden Reed's like the start for the receivers. I think Tucker Kraft is a dart throw, and then it looks like Aaron Jones should be back. It's been a while though, so who knows? I think you if it's Aaron Jones, you start him, and if it's AJ Dillon, it's a dart throw. You know it's going to be like 10 points exactly, nothing more, nothing less. So that's the Packers options. Jordan Love's a decent play. He's always an option. Wasn't great last week though. And then the Buccaneers, you're firing up. Rashad White is coming off a season high in both carries and rushing yards, so he's on fire. You fire him up. He's going to carry you guys in your playoffs. Hopefully he's fantastic. And then Mike Evans is coming off a stinker, but I think he'll be a lot better. And Chris Godwin's kind of getting into start contention. It feels like he's going to get a touchdown here soon.
You're preaching to the choir, Dan, and I couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree more on all that.
Beautiful. All right. Well, I guess you guys just don't have to watch that game, and we'll go on to the next one. The Texans are going to go into Titans and play or the Texans are going to go into Tennessee and play the Titans. Jesus, too late for this. The Titans are 2.5 point home favorites, and that is a weird line. It's kind of an impossible line to set right now because we have no clue if CJ Stroud's playing or not. So I do kind of hate this one because it's an impossible one to pick. Like we'll get it out of the way. If CJ Stroud's playing, I'm picking the Texans. If he's not playing, I'm pretty confident that the Titans win easily. So that's like how polarizing this is. The Titans are coming off a really good performance against the Dolphins. They were really resilient. Will Levis showed he's a dog. He showed he belongs. He's really fun. Getting it to DeAndre Hopkins, who was dominant. Derrick Henry's been a lot better recently. So I think the Titans are going to be competitive. It's going to be close either way because CJ Stroud and the Texans have an incredible amount of injuries. And if he does go, he's going to be thrown to kind of a bunch of rando receivers like Noah Brown and Robert Woods. So it's an interesting one. Nico Collins is looking like he could go, and it's a tight matchup. And like I said, it's Stroud. If Stroud plays, I'm picking the Texans. If not, I'm going with the Titans.
Yeah, that's the one thing I have in my notes is Texans if Stroud or sorry, Titans if Stroud doesn't play, Texans if Stroud does play. Um, and so yeah, I mean the Titans were pretty resilient last week and had a really good fun win, and Will Levis was pretty electric. Especially towards the end of the game and really clutched up, and DeAndre Hopkins looked like a true alpha wide receiver one. He looked like he was in his prime again. And it was pretty fun. And they were distributing the ball. I liked the healthy mix of Tajay Spears and Derrick Henry around the goal line. And the way that the Titans played was really impressive. And so, yeah, I mean, ultimately, I believe this comes down to CJ Stroud because I just have so much faith and confidence in him to get it done. But yeah, if he's not out there, then give me the Titans all day long. And I mean, regardless, it should be. I mean. Is Nico Collins confirmed out?
No, he's not confirmed out. It's looking like he might get a day in of practice in, so he might actually play. So that could be a big boost.
Yeah, I guess that's also a big thing right there. Obviously, no Tank Dell, he's done for the year. So this Texans team has taken a hit these last couple weeks, and it just kind of seems like they're on the wrong side of the stick heading into, you know, the witching hour, as Scott Hansen would say, of this season. So yeah, and the Titans, I don't know. I mean, they're playing fun football, so this should be a really fun game, and it's a division game. Lock this one as one of the games of the week. This one you'll be wanting to watch, and especially if Stroud plays. So that'll make it so exciting. But I'm super excited in this one. I think there's a lot of fantasy implications, that could go down in this, depending if Stroud plays and doesn't play.
Yeah, and the Titans are wearing their throwback Oilers jerseys, so you do have to take that into consideration. I think that's the only reason they're favored in this one. So they're going to be looking good and feeling good at home. So it's going to be a close game. Even if Stroud plays, I am confident there's going to be a really close game. So it's a fun one, and I guess we'll transition into fantasy. We'll start with the Texans. The Texans are so weird. Singletary is now the workhorse after making Dameon Pierce the workhorse against the Broncos, and then they give Dameon Pierce like 8 total snaps last game. So this team is so odd. I guess Singletary is a start, but the Texans running back situation is just scary at this point and weird. And then Nico Collins, obviously, you fire up if he does play. You love that. He's a star. CJ Stroud, you just monitor that situation. Davis Mills is good enough to keep the team afloat and get the ball off to some options. You've got Noah Brown is like the only other option I would think of. And then the tight end, either Dalton Schultz or Brevin Jordan if Dalton Schultz doesn't go. And then for the Titans, I think it's Hopkins and Derrick Henry. I think they're both pretty good options this week.
Yeah, yeah. All I'm just gonna say, you hit the nail on the head with that again, but I'm excited for this one, man. It's gonna just be a really, really fun AFC South divisional game. And I really hope Stroud plays in this one because it'll just make it all the more fun. But I'm just gonna tune this one in. I'm gonna lock this in just for most exciting game of the week.
Yeah, very exciting narrative if Stroud does play. We got the two rookie quarterbacks who are playing really good going against each other. So will be a really fun divisional matchup, AFC South implications, and we'll get on to the next one. The Giants, the 5-8 Giants are going to go into New Orleans and play the 6-7 Saints. The Saints are 6-point home favorites, and how about Tommy Cutlets and the Giants, man? They're on a 3-game win streak. It's pretty crazy what they're doing over there in New York. Just it's fun. Like I think it's just because he's playing such a safe brand of football. He's playing so safe that it's like keeping them in every single game. And even against the Saints defense, I'll just go into like the my prediction right now. I want to pick the Saints because they're so much better on paper, but I feel like DeVito could limit the Saints defense because of just how he's been playing, how surgical and just safe he's been playing. He's just getting it off so quick and to Saquon and to Wandell and the playmakers. So it is interesting. Like I think this is a really, really close game. I think that 6-point line is honestly disrespectful. I think it's a really, really tough game to call. The Giants are still in the not in the race or anything, but they could possibly make the playoffs. So this is an interesting one. I think it's really close and tough to pick.
Yeah, that's all. That's
You
I
going
think
New York?
what?
You going with New York?
No, I just wanted to do it. Whatever the is. But no, even though Derek Carr is a scared little girl at the end of the day, I'm still rolling with the Saints just because the talent, a little bit more talent in my opinion, a little bit more well-rounded. I feel like you're really gonna have to rely on Saquon again to make something really special happen, which he has done. And yeah, DeVito has, I mean, in my opinion, DeVito's the best quarterback in New York right now, um, outside of Buffalo. I forget that's in New York. But the other New York team, the one they share a stadium with. But, even with Derek Carr and being just scared, I feel like the Saints will ultimately just have a decent enough game plan to beat the Giants. And I think they'll humble them a little bit. I think Tommy DeVito's dad might get a little humbled. He won't be kissing his manager or whatever in the in the crowd next week. Yeah, I think a big game, which you have on the screen right here if you're watching this on YouTube. Alvin Kamara and Saquon Barkley. I think both of these guys will eat though. And for the fantasy playoffs, this should be a big scoring game for these two running backs. So I'm super excited to see what they do in this.
As a Kamara owner, that gets me really excited. Like I am hoping that Kamara goes off. I guess we'll transition to fantasy. Derek Carr sucks. Derek Carr sucks. So
And Jameis, please.
yeah,
He's
like
so much more fun. And their offense is like 10 times better. I don't care if he throws 2 interceptions. He's going to put up 4 touchdowns. Jameis is not afraid to put the ball down the field. And Olave all of a sudden becomes 6 more times relevant and explosive because they're getting the ball down the field. So I don't know. I mean, it's the contract. They feel guilted into starting Derek Carr, but give me a little Jameis, man. I love that guy.
yeah, the Saints are crippled. Derek Carr struggled to get 100 passing yards against the Panthers last week, and I think they may be better off of Jameis, and definitely in fantasy they would be way better off of Jameis. But yeah, like you said, Kamara is going to have a good game. You start him. Jamal Williams is getting more involved, but Kamara, I kind of want to give a touchdown guarantee for Kamara because he seems like a touchdown per week guy at this point. Same with Saquon. I guess we'll both running backs are must starts. You get that out of the way. Chris Olave is the other must start on the Saints. He's kind of balling regardless of quarterback. He's just so good. He's probably going to get a touchdown as well. And I think that's kind of it for the Saints. You a lot of borderline options that I'm kind of just wanted to stay away from. I don't really want to start Rashid Shaheed or anyone. It's just a complete dart throw. And then for the Giants, it's just Saquon. And then I think Wandale Robinson isn't the worst flex play. I think he's actually a decent flex play. He's probably going to get a lot of targets. You could do a lot worse than him. And I don't want to start Darren Waller in his first game back.
That's what I have to say.
Yeah.
Or whatever.
Tommy Cutlets, baby. That's moral of the story.
That's the moral of this game is just a little bit of
And
whatever.
I haven't even given my pick for this game because like Derek Carr sucks so bad. I really just don't want to pick the Saints. But like I'm just gonna pick the Saints because they have the better team on paper, they have the better defense, and they need to win this game to stay in the NFC South race with the Bucks and Falcons. But I'm not confident at all, and I'm pretty positive the Giants are winning this game. So I'm not confident about it.
So you're picking the Saints, but you know the Giants are gonna win.
Yes, because it just feels careless to pick. It feels careless to pick the Saints, but I just know it's going to backfire. I know it for a fact.
It makes sense. I get it. I get it.
But I mean, I don't know. The Giants are on a 3-game win streak. I'm just going to stick with the Saints pick, and we're moving on. I don't want to go back and forth on it, but yeah, Tommy Cutlets will probably get benched in this one, but we'll go on to the next one. The Falcons are going to go into Carolina and play the Panthers. The Falcons are only 3-point road favorites. It's a weird line. I guess it's because Ritter's so stinky, but uh, the Falcons are going to easily win this game. We'll get out of the way. They're just such a better team. The Panthers have been playing so bad. They're such a bad coach team. They're just such a bad situation. They're dysfunctional on every level. I feel terrible for Bryce Young, and we kind of just are on to 2024 with the Panthers. So I'll take the Falcons, and it might not be a butt whipping with this 3-point line. That's a little bit weird, but the Falcons will win.
Yeah, not a lot to analyze on this one. Panthers are poo poo. They ain't ever gonna beat anybody. So give me a Bijan touchdown for the fantasy playoffs. That's my takeaway in this.
Yeah, I think if you guys are doing any underdog slips, I think a Bijan touchdown is actually a really good over lock. I guess we'll go into fantasy. I think Bijan's a really good option. He could have a blow up week for your guys' playoff team. So you do like that. Drake London could have a blow up week again. He's coming off a huge performance. You definitely want to stay in the flames with him. So don't even think about starting him. You start him, and that's about it. Kyle Pitts is a dart throw of all dart throws with Ritter. You never know. And for the Panthers, it's Chuba and Thielen. I think they'll be fine starts off volume, but the Panthers are so bad it's scary.
Yeah, that just means I agree. But yeah, I don't even for some reason I don't even feel any good about any Panthers in this game. I don't know why. I feel like it's gonna be extremely low scoring, which is gonna ultimately hurt the Panthers player. But yeah, I mean, obviously Chuba just because volume and Adam Thielen, and I don't feel that confident in those guys because Panthers are poo poo.
So you're saying pick up the Falcons defense and start them confidently, like I do.
Yes, preach. Yes, 100%.
Yeah, I
Should
think
be
the
like some good points. Some good points coming from the Falcons defense. Let's just say that. Bryce Young doesn't have any offensive linemen.
Yeah, I think the Falcons are probably like the streaming defense of the week this week, so I do like that. Obviously, any defense against the Panthers, and with that, we'll get on to the next one. The 10-3 49ers are going to go into Arizona and play the 3-10 Cardinals. The Niners are 12.5 point favorites. The Niners are the best team in football right now. They're absolutely rolling. Brock Purdy is making an MVP case, spreading it around to these insane arsenal of weapons. You got Debo, who's outrunning everyone, running after the catch. He's an absolute freak. Brandon Ayuk has been great, running after the catch like Debo. He's just an absolute star. George Kittle, one of the better tight ends in the NFL, the highest graded tight end in the NFL actually this year. And everyone knows Christian McCaffrey, probably another MVP candidate. Just an absolute stud. Just Brock Purdy beating all these targets has been so fun. I think again, even in this Cardinals matchup, I think they're going to kind of just keep their foot on the pedal. The Niners kind of have all year. They're wanting touchdowns. They're hungry for those points. So I expect the Niners to go into Arizona and kind of put on a pounding. But the Cardinals have been playing better since Kyler got back. This guy Trey McBride right here has been kind of a star for Kyler. It's been a really fun connection. How do you see this one going?
49ers are good. And this is gonna be a tough game for the Cardinals. For whatever reason though, the Cardinals will actually probably play pretty tough. It's gonna be a tough game for them, but they're a tough team. And I do believe they'll play hard. I'm sure Kyler will be running around, for his life in this one. But yeah, the 49ers are just rocking and rolling on all cylinders. They are the best team in the NFL, and the Cardinals don't stand a chance. But I do believe they'll hang in there and they'll play tough. But at the end of the day, the 49ers are just too freaking talented, man. It's just nuts, and their coaching is just unbelievable. So I mean, the 49ers and then the injuries are they're rolling on all cylinders, and it just seems too good to be true for them. And I mean, it'll carry on into this week, and they'll get a big time win. Um, and 49ers will probably end up, in my opinion, getting that first round bye.
Yeah, you have to pick the Niners. They're just rolling. And like you said, it could be close to the Cardinals are playing really competitive with teams, but yeah, the Niners are kind of relentless. They really keep their foot on the pedal. They love scoring. They love running up that score. So I wouldn't be surprised if it was another just complete blowout and all these stars score touchdowns and Purdy has another great MVP type performance. So it's going to be really fun. I'm going to pick the Niners as kind of everyone has to, the best team in football, and we'll transition into fantasy. For the Niners, you start every single option. We don't talk about it. All those stars that I named at the beginning of this, you start and you don't think about it. And then for the Cardinals, it's James Conner and Trey McBride against a really tough defense. I think that's it. Kyler Murray and Hollywood are a little bit scary. I think Kyler you could start because of his rushing upside, but there's probably some better options like Geno and Russ.
Michael Myers game of the week. I lock it in. This seems like the best chance. Lock it in. Michael Myers bloody murder game of the week. Cardinals will play tough for a quarter, and the 49ers are just ultimately going to dominate.
The Niners always seem like a safe bet for our Michael Myers game of the week. So yeah, we'll lock that in as our bloody murder game of the week, and we won't look back. We'll go on to the next one. The 4-9 Washington Commanders are going to go into LA and play the 6-7 Rams. The Rams are 6.5 point favorites because they're playing some really good football. The Rams are playing like a really good football team. They're looking like a real playoff contender. Matthew Stafford just went into Baltimore and dueled with Lamar Jackson in like a playoff atmosphere type of matchup. It was a great back and forth game that the Rams easily could have won. Cooper Cup does look back. There were kind of some Twitter uh, doctors the last few weeks saying that the Ravens game would be when Cooper Cup should be fully healthy, and he looked fully healthy. So maybe that just is what the problem was, and Cooper Cup is now just back, and him and Stafford have their connection back, and Puka Nacua is still absolutely balling, by the way, and we know that Kyron Williams is dominant. Sean McVay, speaking of dominance, is just an absolutely huge legend right now. Like he is in his bag, pushing all the right buttons with his play calling. He was kind of toying with Mike McDonald, one of the best defensive coordinators in the NFL last week for the Ravens. So The Rams are really fun. The Commanders suck. I'll get that out of the way. We'll call them the Redskins this week, and I'll get that out of the way. The Rams are going to win this game. It might be an ass beating.
I wanted to say the same thing. Yeah, the Redskins suck. They are a horrible football team. Horrible management. I mean, it probably goes all the way up to, the VP of football operations or whatever, but they are freaking horrible. They're a bad football team. In the wise words of Tyler Huntley, they sell poo poo again. I'll throw that quote out there again. And yeah, Sean McVay is just gonna tease Ron Rivera, and honestly, I hope Ron Rivera gets fired this week because Sean McVay embarrasses him so bad. Because the Rams are the better team. I wouldn't even say the Rams. They're just the better team. And I wouldn't even say they're the better coach team. They're more fundamentally sound. And I want Ron Rivera's head this week. I want him to be so humiliated. I want him out of the NFL as a head coach.
Yeah, and I think it's possible. I don't know when he gets fired, but he will get fired. This definitely is his last year. I would just promote Eric Bieniemy as the head coach because he is doing pretty good. I would like to see a different quarterback other than Sam Howell for the Commanders. He isn't really I've been saying it for a while. He just doesn't seem like a franchise quarterback. You could start him and be fine, but you can definitely just do better. And I would like to do better. Uh, and yeah, I
With
just
these receivers, they have good receivers. There's no excuse. They have good running backs. Their line is lower tier. It's not the worst in the NFL. I mean, there's no reason they should be. It ultimately comes down to Sam Howell and Ron Rivera, in my opinion, and whatever management above, and just fundamental football is just pretty bad on the Redskins.
and just whoever's telling Sam Howell not to throw to his star Terry McLaurin and Jahan Dotson and only to throw to Curtis Samuel and Logan Thomas and his running backs. But yeah, I guess that'll transition us into fantasy because the Commanders are so weird. You start Curtis Samuel because he's apparently the Redskins wide receiver one. He's the player that you're most confident in this entire team. Brian Robinson is back to practice, so he should be good to go. I guess you could start him, and that's about it. I guess I'm not starting Terry McLaurin. Like I have a team where I had Keenan Allen, and I have to choose a flex spot now, and I think I'm going to start Kincaid over Terry McLaurin. I'm just not wanting to start Terry in a playoff matchup, so I think it's kind of Curtis Samuel and Brian Robinson. Sam Howell's a little bit scary. The Rams defense has been pretty good. For the Rams, you're really excited about every option. You kind of want to target this hot Rams offense. That you want to stay in the flames. They're on fire. So um, Kyron Williams, he's my RB2 this week. I think Kyron Williams has like a playoff winning, week winning performance. So really excited for Kyron, fire him up. You really excited about Cooper Kupp and Puka coming off big performances. I think they're gonna keep that up. And you start Matthew Stafford. Stafford is one of the better quarterbacks in fantasy right now, and you start him over like a player like Patrick Mahomes. I'm gonna say it confidently. I think you start Matthew Stafford over a lot of options other than the elite guys. So yeah, I think the Rams you're just targeting. They have the second or third highest implied team point total this week. So I think you just target the Rams, baby.
Kyron Williams this week. Gonna be a masterclass, and he's just gonna go off so hard that you know Ron Rivera has to get fired, and that's my takeaway. Ron Rivera has to get fired after this week.
It is going to be a dominance, and I don't know if you got your pick out of the way, but I am going to pick the Rams. They have to get in that wild card, and it's going to be a dominant.
Yes, I am taking the Rams this week. If yes, I will be rolling with the Rams. Yeah, the Washington commanding Redskins suck.
We can make this one our other Michael Myers bloody murder game of the week, and we'll move on. You guys don't have to watch it. We'll get on to the next one. A really fun matchup that I still haven't even put my pick in, and I'll be honest, I have no idea who to pick. The 10-3 Dallas Cowboys are going to go into Buffalo and play the 7-6 Bills. The Bills are 2.5 point home favorites against one of the hotter teams in the NFL, against Dak Prescott, the MVP favorite. It's pretty crazy. It's a little bit scary. And I think a big part of that is because the Bills do kind of feel back. They don't feel like a 7-6 Bills team. They feel like the Bills of the last few years. They do feel like a really good football team. Their defense even stepped up last week against the Chiefs. So this is just so hard to pick because you know that in any given matchup at home, Josh Allen can completely click, and he could beat anyone, literally anyone. But at the same time, the Cowboys are, other than the Niners, the most well-oiled machine. Everything's working. Mike McCarthy has flipped the switch in Dak Prescott in every single aspect of everything. You can tell he's approaching everything different mentally. He's a different quarterback. Anyone that says that this has been the Dak Prescott, that they've seen this Dak Prescott ever previously in previous years, they're lying, because this is a completely new Dak Prescott. Mike McCarthy has him approaching things differently mentally, and you can tell he's a completely different, confident quarterback. He's making some great decisions, some great accurate throws, and he's a beast. So I am really torn on who to pick between both teams who are just really really hot right now. Both quarterbacks who are really hot. I'm torn, man.
This is I when I said the other game was the game of the week, this is the game of the week. Yeah, this is a fun game. This is okay, yeah, this has got to be the most fun. This is the game of the week. This is the one you tune into. Josh Allen, who's coming off a big win versus Kansas City Chiefs. And then yeah, Dak Prescott is coming off of a statement win against the Eagles. And I'm gonna roll. I'll get it out. I'll get my pick out of the way. I'm rolling with the Cowboys. They are just too good of a football team. I think their defense will ultimately come up big with pick six. I mean, I think the Cowboys defense, they're the most lethal defense in the NFL when it comes to making big plays and changing the outcome of a game because of a big play. And that's kind of what's going to favor me in terms of the Cowboys, is just the defense making a big play. But I'm excited because I feel like Josh Allen and the Bills really do match up extremely well against the Cowboys. So it should be one that comes down to the minute, and whoever has the ball last.
Yeah, just an absolutely insane matchup. They match up too well against each other. It literally makes it impossible to pick. And yeah, I am gonna pick the Cowboys as well, because like I was alluding to earlier with Mike McCarthy, with Dak Prescott's new approach, with this new Dak Prescott that we're seeing, they're a different team. This Bills line scares me with the Bills being favorited, but I'm not gonna let that line get to me. I am just gonna pick the Cowboys because they're so dominant right now. They just seem like a different team. Maybe the last few years the Cowboys would drop this game, but they just seem like they're gonna prove people that they're a different team. And even against this really tough, hot Bills team, I think the Cowboys will come away with it on the road. It would be a very impressive win, but don't be surprised if the Bills did win, because it's going to be a very fun, high scoring, back and forth matchup.
Yeah, I'm just so excited. And from the fantasy aspect, it's going to be a blast. I mean, Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs, James Cook, I think you can fire up and feel pretty confident. Dalton Kincaid should have a pretty awesome week as well. I mean, it should be on all cylinders, pretty fun. You never know with Gabe Davis. It could be his final breakout game. It could be a breakout game, it might be a dud. You never know with Gabe Davis, but I'm super excited, and you know who you're starting on the Cowboys. It's too simple already. I mean, it's Dak, CD, Tony, Jake Ferguson, and then your dart throws with Brandon Cooks.
Yeah, stay away from Gabe Davis in a playoff matchup. You can't be even with the potential of him getting 40. I'm not starting Gabe Davis. You can't put
It's
him.
a risk. It's too big of a risk. It really is.
And I will say, I think James Cook is just going to continue his dominance. He's been a huge part of the Bills' success. He's a huge part of their offense, like the focal point of their offense. So James Cook's an awesome option. And yeah, like you said, you start all the Cowboys stars. Jake Ferguson's like a star tight end. And I will say they're borderline options. Brandon Cooks, Michael Gallups. I'm not too confident in like a Brandon Cooks this week with kind of them targeting more people. So I think it is just kind of the stars, and you know who you're starting.
Yeah, should be the game of the week. So everyone best be watching this one.
Definitely. And with that, we'll get on to the next one, the Sunday night football game. The 10-3 Ravens are going to go into Jacksonville and play the 8-5 Jags. The Jags are 3-point underdogs in this one at home, and the Ravens are playing some good football, man. They're coming off a close win against the Rams, or could have gone either way, but the Ravens really are the best team in the AFC right now. I think you can say that pretty confidently. There's some teams around them, but I think the Ravens are the most competent team on all aspects of things. I think they're the ones that kind of compete and rival with the top NFC teams right now, like the 49ers, Cowboys, Eagles. I think the Ravens are that team in the AFC. And I mean, I guess me saying that, I'll get my pick out of the way. I think they will go into Jacksonville and get the win. the Jags weren't too sharp last week. Trevor definitely wasn't too sharp. I know that leg injury doesn't affect his decision making or anything, but it kind of did because he was just really pushing things, really timid in the pocket, getting the ball out a little too quick. So I do think the injury does affect him. It just makes him like a Derek Carr in the pocket, just a little bit too timid and gets it out too quick. So I do think the Ravens are just too good. Their defense will maybe give the Jags some fits, and I am going to go with the Ravens on Sunday Night Football.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I'm riding with the Ravens. They are the hotter hand right now. Trevor is playing some boneheaded football last week. I'm sure the injury, had something to do with it. They probably dosed him up on too much meds. He's probably a little fuzzy in the head because he was making some weird throws. Um, so I mean, yeah, I can't roll with them. This Ravens team is too hot, too powerful. If the Browns, gave Trevor that big of a fit, I have no doubt that the Ravens will too. But then you also you gotta respect Trevor, because he one thing about Trevor is he's relentless, and even if he throws 3 picks, he's still pushing the ball down the field. There's just a never-ending fight in him. And it goes to the final whistle, even though it felt like it should have been a blowout for the Browns. Trevor battled back, but 2013 primetime Joe Flacco just wouldn't let him back into the game. But this is going to be a pretty good game. It's going to be they're going to play each other super tough. One of the better AFC South teams versus the best AFC North team. This should be a good one. I think it'll help the Ravens secure that first seed, in my opinion, in the AFC.
Yeah, it will be a good game. And yeah, I think you just alluded to it as well. The Ravens probably will win this game. And I think the biggest reason, other than Trevor's injury, is like the Jaguars defense. They started off the season pretty good, but like the Lions, they've really fallen off a cliff. The Jaguars defense has a lot of good individual players, I'll say that, unlike the Lions, but they're just not really playing together, not really clicking. They're performing well individually, but yeah, their defense just hasn't really been that good recently. So I think Lamar is going to have another like MVP type performance. He really is the MVP candidate that no one is talking about this year. He really does deserve to be up there. He's awesome. Without Mark Andrews, he's making Isaiah Likely really really fun. He's making. I guess we'll transition to fantasy. I think Odell Beckham is a star. I think Odell's looking like a good receiver. Obviously, Zay Flowers is a good start. He's coming off a huge electric performance. You like both those receivers. I think Isaiah Likely is a fun start. I think Lamar is just going to have a really good outing against this Jaguars secondary and defense. And for the Jags, you start ETN, you start Evan Ingram pretty confidently because he's a star tight end. And I think Zay Jones is actually a pretty decent flex option just because of targets.
Cash money. Perfect. Yeah, I know. And I really like what you just said right there with Lamar is an MVP candidate that no one has given enough credit to. And he's really just played an incredible brand of football this year. And maybe this will be the game where people start recognizing that because, I mean, he really does deserve some MVP talk because he has played fantastic.
And I didn't say start him in fantasy, but that's because it's so obvious. You start with Lamar in fantasy; he's a complete star. You could have a boom week to win your week in fantasy, and I think we both agree you probably aren't starting Keaton Mitchell unless you're really really desperate, right?
100%. Yeah, I'm not feeling too confident in Keaton Mitchell at all.
Yeah, with Lamar being the main runner in this offense, it's pretty obvious. But we'll go on to the last game of the week, the Monday Night Football game. The Eagles, the 10-3 Eagles, are going to go into Seattle and play the 6-7 Seahawks. The Eagles are 4-point road favorites, and this is a really close one. I could definitely see the Seahawks winning if Geno plays. I guess I'll get that out of the way. We don't know if Geno's playing yet. That's still up in the air. It's looking like he will. Hopefully he does because I was really impressed by his performance against the Cowboys on Thursday a few weeks ago. He looked really really good, sharp. He was like perfect all game, throwing darts to DK. So I hope that Geno plays in this one because against this Eagles secondary, which has been a problem, I've been kind of pointing to it since I swear week one. I've really been pointing to this Eagles secondary. They've really been a mess. I think that's what will make this game so close in the end. The Eagles defensive line has some stars like Jalen Carter and Fletcher Cox, but they just aren't good enough to disguise that terrible secondary that's just been hurting them. So I do think that's what makes this matchup really close and fun. And The Eagles coming off a loss. You never know. It could be. I almost want to pick the Seahawks. I think this is going to be my almost upset of the week, and I'm still deciding.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard to want to. I mean, you could see if Geno plays and with how the Seahawks played the Cowboys. I mean, it was a shootout, and the Cowboys got a lot better secondary than the Eagles do. Um, but the Eagles coming off of two losses, can they possibly lose a third in a row? Maybe. If it depends how if people have written off Geno, and he knows about it, then he might have a legacy game. So that could be the difference if Geno feels written off in this one. Uh, and DK could go absolutely stupid against Darius Slay and James Bradbury. I mean, he could definitely take advantage of this. The Seahawks receiving option should be a really fun one in this. Um, However, me talking about this, I'm not brave enough to pick against the Eagles in this one. I can't physically do it, so I'm gonna rock and roll with the Eagles. But yeah, this could be a sleeper upset game that I'm not feeling too confident with, but I don't have the guts to pick against them.
I feel like I haven't had any gutsy, ballsy picks of the week yet, so I am going to go with
Do
the
it.
Seahawks. I'm gonna go with the 12th man. I'm gonna go with the Seahawks. I'm gonna use my upset of the week on this one. I do think it's gonna happen if Geno plays. Let me get that out of the week. I'm not picking Drew Lock. Let me get that out of the way. I'm not picking Drew Lock to go and beat the Eagles. But if Geno plays, I was really just optimistic on what I saw from that game against the Cowboys. He has to play good. The Seahawks have to win to stay in this wild card race, as you see with the 6-7 record, with the Rams playing as good as they are. The Seahawks have to win. So I do think the 12 man comes out in Seattle, and I do think they squeak away with the win. It's gonna be really close. On these two guys on the graphic right here, the two Ole Miss boys that are made out of a lab, two robot freak non-humans, AJ Brown and DK. I think they go off. I think they take over this game. So it's gonna be a fun one. I think it'll be very high scoring and back and forth like that Cowboys Seahawks game was. And I'm just gonna go with the Seahawks, man.
Yeah, and you're starting this. I think this will turn into a shootout. Should be a really good game for AJ Brown, Devontae Smith, DK Metcalf, Jackson Smith and Jigba, Tyler Lockett. I think everyone you should start. I think they're really going to take advantage of the opportunities. And you start everyone, DeAndre Swift. I don't know about the Seahawks running backs, kind of gross. What do you make out their running backs to be?
Yeah, so in fantasy, like you said, the receivers in this game are just huge, huge options. You're not really thinking twice about it, and the running backs for both teams are starting to be a problem on a real downward trajectory. For the Seahawks, personally, I'm staying away from both. I am staying away from that split of a backfield against a really good defensive line. I'm just gonna stay away. And I guess for the Eagles, you kind of have to start DeAndre Swift. If you're in a shallow league with a lot of options, you could definitely bench DeAndre Swift because of his performances the last few weeks. But in like a 12 team league, you kind of have to start Swift. So you're scared about it, but yeah, you start like Hurts. I think Geno's actually a good start. DK, AJ Brown, Devontae Smith, Goddard. You start all those guys. Lockett, JSN is a decent option, and I just think the running backs are scary to me.
Yeah, I love it. Dan's upset of the week. If Geno's playing, so a little right there, a little cutlets Geno right there. So gotta love it.
Yeah, I'm somewhat confident in my upset of the week. So yeah, really fun going over all our week 15 games. Crazy we're in week 15, but yeah, really excited for this week.
Stay tuned, boys.
All right, thanks for joining. Like, subscribe if you liked, and peace.
Peace.